and welcome to Freaky Fridays. Today I have three very special stories for you. All of them happened in different cupolas in town. They were church cupolas to be exact. I am interested in your feedback on these stories. Let me know if you think they're paranormal or supernatural or maybe a little bit of both. All I know is that they happened, and I'm glad for stories like this so I can share them with you. The first story happened in the cupola of Trinity United Church of Christ, which back then was the German Reformed Church. This church is on High Street and the corner of Stratton Street. It quickly became a hospital for all wounded soldiers, and unfortunately, a Confederate soldier went up into the cupola and began firing at Union forces on East Cemetery Hill. Now, this was something that just wasn't done during the Civil War or any war. You do not fire at hospitals, you do not fire at churches, or from churches for that matter. So this Confederate was really not doing what he was supposed to do, and had an officer caught him doing this, he would have been in a heap of trouble. The Unions on East Cemetery Hill, the Union officers saw that this guy was sniping at them, so the one officer ordered artillery fire to begin at the church. Now, this was not supposed to be done either, but they had to get this guy out of there or he could cause a lot of damage. So that they fired one shot of artillery and it just barely missed the cupola, and that was enough for the Confederate soldier to turn tail and run down the stairs out of the church. On his way out, he passed the pastor and said, "This is too much fire for me, I'm out of here." And it was a good thing that he did get chased out of the cupola. The second story has to do with Christ Lutheran Church on Chambersburg Street. On June 26th, White's Virginia Cavalry and Gordon's infantry came into town. They were commanded by a General Jubal Early. And Jubal Early wanted his men to find supplies, anything that was badly needed for the Confederates, which was just about everything. The Confederates were also supposed to round up black people, and they would be taken back across the border and sold as slaves. Unfortunately, the Confederates did find 25 black people in town. One of these people was a woman named Elizabeth Butler. And Elizabeth was a washerwoman for the McCreary family. They were a wealthy family in town, and they were very fond of Elizabeth, so they would have been sad to know that she had been captured. But Elizabeth noticed that the guard wasn't paying attention, and she made a break for it. She ran up the steps of the church. Once inside the steps, she ran up into the cupola, and she hid there. She stayed over 24 hours in that cupola with no food, water, nothing. Liz was lucky, and you may wonder why she was lucky, but at any time, a Confederate officer could go up into that cupola and use it as a scouting position. If Liz was discovered, she would have been, probably put in handcuffs of some kind and made sure she didn't try to escape again. Fortunately for Liz, she was safe. No one ever came up into the cupola, and she was free to go back to her life in Gettysburg as a civilian and a free woman. This third story takes place at St. James Lutheran Church, and that's right on York Street in town. And it was Reverend Abraham Essex wanted to go up into his cupola and see what was going on. Now this was day one. Everybody was excited. They wanted to find out what was happening, and he knew that from that cupola view they could scope around Gettysburg and see everything. He talked one of his church members into going up into the cupola with him. The men were spotted up there and the firing was hot and heavy, and the church member said, I'm leaving, this is too much for me. You stay up here if you want to, but I'm going. And he did. He went back downstairs to where he was safer. Reverend Essex stayed up there, and they kept firing and firing and firing. It was so lucky for him that he was not wounded. When they later discovered how many bullets were in that cupola, it was amazing that the man wasn't killed. There were over 100 bullets in the walls and even laying out on the floor. Reverend Essex must have had some kind of divine intervention because he was safe, and his congregation was very happy of that. All these stories that I just told you, they all occurred within a week, the same time period. They all seem to have some kind of divine intervention. The people that were in these cupolas were using them for safety and shelter and to hide. There's just so many, synchronous things that happen with these stories. It's hard to believe. And I'm curious about your opinion about what happened here, and what do you think it was? Do you think it was paranormal? Do you think it was divine intervention or supernatural? Who knows? But I hope you enjoyed these stories. I hope you'll come back next week for another Freaky Friday. Please click like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.